The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. As always, we have a packed show for you with all the top news stories from around the globe. Let's get started with our big focus, which is on the Israel-Hamas war. 24 Israeli soldiers have been killed in the last 24 hours in Gaza, 21 of them in a single incident in Southern Gaza, according to the Israeli Defense Forces. This is the biggest single-day loss of life for Israeli troops inside the battered enclave since the war with Hamas began. IDF spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said a tank that was protecting Israeli troops was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade. Simultaneously, two-story buildings collapsed on soldiers following an explosion. Most of the Israeli forces killed were in or near the buildings. Hagari said the buildings probably exploded because of the mines that our forces laid there in preparation to demolish them and the infrastructure around. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the deaths of the soldiers represented one of the most difficult days since the outbreak of the war. In a post on X, Netanyahu said, "I wish to strengthen the dear families of our heroic warriors who fell on the battlefield. I know that for these families, their lives will be changed forever. I mourn for our fallen heroic soldiers. I hug the families in their time of need, and we all pray for the peace of our wounded." Netanyahu added that the IDF has launched an investigation into the incident. The Israeli military's large-scale bombing campaign in Gaza has been ongoing since the 7th October terror attacks and kidnapping rampage by Hamas that saw some 1,200 people killed in Israel and more than 250 taken hostage. More than 130 of them are still in captivity. The number of Israeli soldiers killed in Gaza since ground operations began now stands at 219. And let's not forget, since the war began, over 25,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, according to the Hamas-run Health Ministry, and at least 63,000 wounded. In recent weeks, the Israeli military's main focus has been in southern Gaza, with intense fighting around the city of Khan Yunis. The IDF says the city is now surrounded. The Hamas-controlled health ministry says nearly 200 people have been killed in this area in the last 24 hours. Hospitals in the city have been battered amid an Israeli assault, say health officials, as the number of people killed in Israel's siege on Gaza continues to rise. Just last week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu outright rejected the two-state solution, saying a Palestinian state would be in direct conflict with Israel's security, sparking massive outrage even amongst Israel's Western allies and drawing sharp reactions from the United States and the European Union. He also turned down a new deal for the release of hostages offered by Hamas because of the conditions attached. Now, US media reports say Israel has come up with a fresh proposal for Hamas. According to this proposal, senior Hamas leaders could leave Gaza as part of a broader ceasefire agreement. The proposal, which has not been previously reported, comes as Israel has struggled to achieve its stated goal of completely destroying Hamas. Despite its nearly 4-month war in Gaza, Israel has failed to capture or kill any of Hamas's senior-most leaders in Gaza and left around 70% of Hamas's fighting forces intact, according to Israel's own estimates. Under this new proposal, though, Israel would give safe passage out of Gaza to top Hamas leaders who orchestrated the 7th October attacks. Draining Gaza of its leaders could weaken Hamas's grip on the war-torn enclave, while also allowing Israel to continue tracking down high-value targets abroad. Senior Hamas officials are known to live in Doha in Qatar and the Lebanese capital Beirut, amongst other places outside the Palestinian territories. An Israeli airstrike earlier this month killed a top Hamas commander in Beirut. Israel's suggestion that Hamas leaders could leave Gaza, though unlikely to be accepted by Hamas, has been discussed as part of broader ceasefire negotiations at least twice in recent weeks, according to these reports. Once last month in Warsaw by Israel's intelligence chief, Mossad director David Barnea, and then again this month in Doha with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. This also comes amid a flurry of diplomatic activity to try and achieve an extended break in the fighting and free hostages believed to be still alive in Gaza. The White House's top official for the Middle East is traveling to Egypt and Qatar this week for further talks. Pressure is mounting on Netanyahu to deliver some kind of resolution. The complete victory over Hamas that he has called for is a long way off by his own admission. Meanwhile, anger amongst Israelis has grown over the inability of the government to bring home the more than 100 hostages who are still being held in Gaza. Also, international sentiment towards Israel has soured over its continued bombardment of Gaza, which, as we said, has killed more than 25,000 Palestinians, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. For the past 2 months, the Biden administration in the US, Israel's closest ally, has been openly calling on Israel to transition to a lower intensity phase of the conflict and to do more to minimize civilian casualties. Meanwhile, the US and the UK launched new strikes on Yemen's Houthis on Monday, saying their second round of joint military action against the Iran-backed rebels was in response to continued attacks on shipping.
Yesterday was one of the hardest days since the war broke out. We lost 24 of our best sons, the heroes who fell defending their homeland. Together with the citizens of Israel, I grieve for each and every one of them. I hug the families whose world has changed forever. From here, we send a prayer for the peace of our wounded. The IDF is conducting a thorough examination of the disaster. We must learn the lessons and do everything for the peace of our soldiers. We are in the midst of an unjust war. In this war, there are great achievements, including today, in completing the encirclement of Khan Yunis. But there are also very heavy prices. We bow our heads to the memory of our fallen, and yet we do not for a moment stop striving for an irrepressible goal, the achievement of absolute victory. Together we will fight, and together we will win. According to what is known at this stage, around 4 o'clock, it seems that an RPG missile was fired by terrorists at a tank that was guarding the force. In parallel, there was an explosion of two-story buildings. The structures collapsed as a result of this explosion at a time when most of the force was inside them and nearby. The buildings likely exploded as a result of the mines that our forces had planted inside in order to destroy the buildings and the terrorist infrastructure in the area.
All right, so let's go across to our guests now. Joining me on Global Lens tonight is Dr. Harel Chore, Palestinian affairs expert at the Moshe Dayan Center at Tel Aviv University. Major General Ashwini Savaj, defense and geopolitical expert here in India, also joining me on the show tonight. And a little later on the show, we're hoping to be joined by Lev Aaron, Israeli journalist. All right, Dr. Harel Chore, welcome back to Global Lens. Let me start with you. 24 Israeli soldiers killed in 2 separate incidents in Gaza in the last 24 hours. By the IDF's own admission, this is the biggest single-day loss of life for Israeli troops since the ground offensive began. And then there are those who say that even 4 months into this war, Israel is miles away from achieving its stated objectives. While Prime Minister Netanyahu continues to put up a brave front, how do you really see the war panning out, given that Israel continues to face a very tough enemy 4 months into a very unpopular war, with the death toll on the other side as high as over 25,000 and pressure from the international community mounting on Israel?
Well, Nia, hi again. First of all, regarding what happened yesterday, we're talking about three paratroopers who were hit by anti-tank missiles, and another 21 who died from a single anti-tank missile that hit basically a house with the landmines, as you said, that we can call it an accident. By the way, only 600 meters away from the border. Just shows you how dangerous this whole thing is in terms of the enemy that we're dealing with, how deadly it is. The amount of ammunition that we find there are enormous, and shafts, including in this particular house or two houses that they were about to explode. Unfortunately, as I told you, this missile hit it in a spot where the whole thing blew up and unfortunately killed 21 of our soldiers. It was not supposed to be this way, but unfortunately this is kind of the things, an accident that might happen in a war. However, I can tell you that Israelis are behind the war in 100%. Everybody are fully agreed that there is no just war than this one. Having that said, the questions that divide us sort of, although you still have a great majority supporting the war, is what are we going to do with the kidnapped? And you have, I think, even a growing group saying that we need to do whatever it takes, including stopping the war for a while, in order to return our hostages. Now, most of the people avoid, basically, the Israelis, I mean, from the question how Hamas will respond or react in that case. That even if Israel says, okay, let's stop the war, just give us all the kidnapped. I don't think, as someone who is studying Hamas for over a decade and a half, that Hamas will be such an easy counterpart in that sense. I'm pretty sure, Nia, that Hamas will use any trick to make us pay the highest price for it, while at the end it will not provide us what we need. In other words, it will keep at least some of the hostages as guarantees for a very long run, until Hamas will feel on a safe ground to say that Israel will not resume its war against it. Unfortunately, I think many people choose to believe this naive path that we can resume the war in any time, even if we'll accept Hamas terms. And I tell you, Nia, everything is recorded at the moment. That's a naive assumption. And I think Hamas will be far more smart to make sure that Israel will not resume and will not break any international guarantees it gives to other counterparts, our friends. So it's really a difficult one.
Well, nobody said that the war against Hamas was going to be easy, but questions continue to be asked about whether Israel set itself unrealistic targets in this war in the first place. This is a conversation we will continue on the other side of a very quick break. Stay with us.
हमारी नारी शक्ति को सशक्त करने से ही देश सशक्त होने वाला है।
हर महीने महिलाओं को 1500 रुपए प्रति माह दिलवाया जाएगा।
What Nitish Kumar did to provide cycle to girls, so they could safely, quickly move out of the house, go to school, and quickly come back. Ching, 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 ching.
माँ अन्नपूर्णा तू ही, माँ अन्नपूर्णा है तू ही वीणा वादनी, हे शक्ति स्वरूपा जगदम्बा, हे नारी तू नारायणी।
News is now content. Just stream it. Download the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. We're discussing the Israel-Hamas war on a day when Israel has suffered a huge setback, losing 24 of its soldiers in just the last 24 hours. Let me go across to Major General Ashwini Sivaj at this point. General Sivaj, you know, the reality is that the complete victory over Hamas that Benjamin Netanyahu has been talking about from the beginning of this war still seems to be light years away. You have a situation where, there's growing anger amongst Israelis over the fact that the Netanyahu government, even 4 months into this war, has failed to bring back the remaining roughly 130 hostages who still remain in captivity in Gaza. On top of that, as you know very well, that the international community's mood has changed drastically. There's a lot of anger and outrage around the world, not just in the Arab world, but now in amongst Israel's Western allies too, given the growing death toll in Gaza. And on top of all of this, you have a situation where Israel has just suffered its worst or biggest single day loss of life, 24 soldiers in 24 hours. This, even as Israel has failed to kill or capture even one major Hamas leader. So questions are going to be asked about whether Israel has got its war strategy right. What is your take?
Absolutely correct, Neha. As far as Israel is concerned, they had two main war objectives. One is completely destroy the military capability of Hamas, and second was to release, all the hostages back. But if you see the war, the way it has panned out in more than 3 months, Israel has not able to succeed in either of that. As far as the military capability of Hamas is concerned, there are 30,000 strong Hamas leader and cadre, and they could only able to destroy not more than 20 to 30% of the military capability of Hamas. And as far as the leader is concerned, very rightly brought out, they have not able to kill any major leader, including Yahya Sinwar, where the report is there that he was there in Gaza city and then he moved to Khan Yunis also. So the question is, yes, as far as Israel is concerned, their military objective, they are not able to succeed at all. In fact, what is happening is, now when they are attacking to northern, southern and the central Gaza, the casualties are mounting of the Palestinian civilians, and they are more than 25,000. This is putting tremendous pressure on Israel, including the best ally called US. Now the point is coming, the casualties increased so much that the advantage with this got it in the beginning, that after all this was a crime which was committed by Hamas of 7th October. Now the advantage is on the Palestine, and the whole world is raising a finger as far as Israel is concerned, the number of casualties which are taking place, and as far as military objective of almost eliminating the military capability of Hamas does not seem to be practical. It looks like that the war can continue for years together. They will not able to finish the military capability of Hamas. As far as the second objective which was there, that there were about 240 hostages. Out of that, they will only manage to get about 120, 130. There are over 100 hostages still with Hamas. And Hamas is not a very simple enemy, is going to manipulate this in time to come. So the question is, Israel had not succeeded in getting its military objective. On top of that, what has happened in the Red Sea has created a further confusion. The Houthi rebels have come into it from Yemen. They are now targeting the commercial ship in Red Sea, and the US and UK have responded, and the chances of this war becoming a regional war is becoming very high when Hezbollah are basically targeting from Lebanon, and Houthi rebels from the Yemen are targeting all the commercial ships from Yemen area to the basically a Red Sea. Now the whole situation seemingly so complicated. The pressure is now mounting. One is international pressure because the Palestinian casualties are increasing and Israel is nowhere to achieve its military objective. Also its own domestic pressure. The people are saying that Benjamin Netanyahu government has completely failed to get the hostages back as well as able to achieve the military success. I suppose today Benjamin Netanyahu is the weakest, both internationally and domestically, and the way the things are fanning out, to me it looks like that it is a very, very difficult situation for Israeli forces now to proceed in Gaza Patti, because the point is that they are not able to kill any major leader of Hamas, and that is making a tremendous impact. Now, how things will fan out from here, time can only tell, but it looks like that it's a total disadvantage to Israel, and Israel is cornered. Israel is now making mistake after mistake, and I suppose the way the Houthi rebels have become very, very aggressive in Red Sea has complicated the situation completely. Now the pressure is on Israel from the international community as well as from a domestic. The war must finish. And how does it finish? Time will only tell. And yes, Hamas is a very clever enemy because it is sponsored and aided by Iran. Iran is playing its card very close to the chest with its proxies of Hezbollah, Houthis and Hamas. And therefore it looks like that today, Israel seemingly looks to be isolated in the whole world.
You're quite right. Israel is isolated today, and therefore let me take this back to Dr. Ariel Chore. Dr. Chore, 4 months is a very long time, especially when a devastating war such as this is raging on and people are dying every day. Would you want to respond to what the Major General has just said, that Israel is today isolated, there's growing pressure on Israel from the international community, there is anger, because more than 25,000 Palestinians, we are told, have been killed in this war. The general says that Israel seems to be losing its way. It seems to have its back to the wall. It's making mistake after mistake. It seems to be at a distinct disadvantage. Its stated objective, one of the stated objectives, was to achieve complete victory over Hamas. That's still a long way off. You've not managed to do that. You've not managed to kill or capture a single major Hamas leader. You've not managed to bring back more than 100 of your hostages. There is growing anger amongst the Israelis, who have protested against the Netanyahu government. And now you have a situation where 24 Israeli soldiers have been killed in a single day. So the narrative that's now building is that Israel has got its war strategy horribly wrong. It's making terrible mistakes. It is the ordinary people in Gaza and the soldiers who are now paying for the mistakes that are being committed by, let's say, the political forces in Israel. I will in fact go as far as to say that there are those who say that Netanyahu is practicing a very cynical brand of politics, that he actually has a vested interest in prolonging this war for his own political survival.
I must say it's really interesting to see how things are sometimes being perceived from other places. But I must tell you, Nia, I totally disagree with all the assumptions that you made here, and I can correct them one by one. First of all, we're not isolated at all. I will just send you both to see the decision of the European Parliament just last weekend, saying that the EU will not ask Israel to cease fire until Hamas will release the hostages and Hamas will be dismantled. That's a victory. That's not the hard situation that you're describing. I can tell you that we're getting from the Arab world under the table, obviously for obvious reasons, the demands or questions saying, are you not about to finish with those Hamas? If it was us, we would finish with them before. I don't also agree for the mistakes, the so-called mistakes that you're attributing to us. Let me remind you, we killed many of our enemies during these 3 months. It's not 4 months, it's just a little bit above 3 months, including Salah el-Aruri, number 2 in Hamas, and probably the most sophisticated terror mind in Hamas, in Lebanon. We killed him. And in Gaza, eventually we will kill the rest of them, Def and Sinwar and Isa. No worries, we are above the ground. It's all a question of how long we're going to stay and proceed this operation. But I can tell you, no country in the world, no army in the world did the same kind of warfare with tunnels, with all the technological measures and special units that we're using very successfully if we check it, on a tactical basis. However, I do agree we did not reach yet this strategic point, or I would say milestone, that will allow us to really leverage it to the goals that we are waiting for. However, we need to understand the way things are built with Hamas, that power is so concentrated now in the Gaza leadership is something that can be changed overnight. What do I mean? I mean that, Hamas is a very networked organization. You have many centers. However, since the war, it was centralized into the decision makers of Gaza. Israel, if this night, for example, will capture Def or Sinwar or kill them, it may change the whole picture and the way you perceived it. Let me remind our viewers again, those 25,000, as you rightfully emphasized again and again, according to Hamas-led health ministry, include also 9,000 terrorists that Israel killed. Okay, 9,000. You need to understand they are all fighting in civilian clothes. And eventually, and you already see a lot of voices. I wish I could send you at least one that I saw today asking Hamas, demanding Hamas to surrender, demanding Hamas to stop the war for the sake of those civilians.
Okay, it's interesting. You say that Israel isn't isolated, but let me remind you, not only is there growing anger around the world over the rising death toll in Gaza, the day when Netanyahu outright rejected the two-state solution, saying that a Palestinian state would be in conflict with Israel's security interests, there was outrage and there were very sharp reactions, including from the United States and the European Union, with leader after leader saying Benjamin Netanyahu's stance is simply unacceptable. All right. We also have Lev Aaron, senior Israeli journalist, joining us on the show at this point. Lev, welcome back to Global Lens. I need to slip into a quick break, but I'll request my guest to stay on with me. We will continue this discussion on the other side.
Pakistani spy agency ISI's sinister plan to target India. Training women to honey trap top civil and military officials. Counter honey trapping ops initiated by India. But gullible victims still caught in the web. Top military intelligence experts break down the web of deception. Colonel Hani Bakshi explains the phenomena of honey trap.
जहाँ पे भी आपको लगेगा, उनको लगेगा कि there is a person who is susceptible to women, who's making a lot of women friends on the social media. That is where they will make a spoof account and then start luring the person.
Colonel Pavitran Rajan decodes the psyche of the victim and the predator.
But when you go up the chain, no one enforces it to people at the top. That disciplinary regime and the security regime is not enforced at the top. And they usually have a public profile where it is much more easier to approach that person.
A News9 special on how modern technology has added teeth to the ancient spying tactic.
Our story takes you inside Pakistan's honey trap machine.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा.
There's certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
A defiant performance by Dan Hag's men. Now standing at 7 feet 4 inches, Satnam Singh is making his way into professional wrestling.
We are getting more good news for India.
$20,000 people dead and counting. What's happening in the United States of America is unprecedented. You will have to pay for this. Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. Let's now go straight across to Lev Aaron. Lev, thanks for waiting patiently. I want to bring your attention to another interesting report that has surfaced today. There are US media reports saying Israel has come up with a fresh proposal for Hamas. According to this proposal, senior Hamas leaders could leave Gaza as part of a broader ceasefire agreement. The proposal of course, comes, we know, at a time when Israel is struggling to achieve its goal. And under this proposal, Israel would give safe passage out of Gaza to top Hamas leaders, many of whom were involved in the 7th October attacks. And while it may seem like a safe passage, but there are some who believe that the exit of these leaders from Gaza could significantly weaken Hamas's grip on the Palestinian enclave. This as Israel continues to target high-value targets abroad. Of course, not many people believe that there will be any takers for this proposal. But what are you picking up from your sources? Because again, this report suggests, and it's been reported by CNN International today, that this proposal has been discussed at least twice in the last 1 month, including with Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here. I think that after the terrible death toll of the last 24 hours, we can say that both Palestinians who believed that after October it will be business as usual, and also Israelis who believed that it will be an easy war in Gaza, we all fell into a pit of self-deception. Now we understand what war is. Hamas understands and Israel understands. I think it is important for Israel to show internally and also to leaders outside Israel that it is not a vendetta war. We are not, revenge is not our purpose in this war. And since we have the precedent of 1982, when Arafat left Beirut, and 10 years afterwards, 11 years after, we had some kind of peace agreement with Palestinians. If we are not looking for a vendetta, a move of the Hamas leadership to Algeria or to other places could end the war, at least as we see the war now.
Okay, so let me bring in Dr. Chore at this point. Dr. Chore, I take the point that you had made in the earlier segment that Al-Aruri is one senior Hamas commander who was in fact killed, most believed by Israel, in the Lebanese capital Beirut recently. But apart from that, of course, the Hamas leadership is pretty much intact. Yahya Sinwar would perhaps be the biggest catch who continues to elude the Israeli forces. But that apart, I want you to comment on this US media report that has surfaced today, suggesting that while Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the offer that had been made by Hamas for the release of the remaining hostages, in return for which they wanted a complete end to the war, complete withdrawal by Israel from Gaza, and, Israel letting Hamas stay in power. Of course, Netanyahu took seconds to reject that. But now, this particular report says that Israel has put forth this proposal before Hamas, that we will give a safe passage to your top leadership. They can safely leave Gaza. And we can all bring this war to an end. Like I said, not many believe that this will be acceptable to Hamas, but what can you tell us about these reports that have surfaced? Do you believe that this could in any way be the way forward?
Well, let me add on that report that you've just mentioned, that in fact we're talking here today about an agreement that, well, Israel offered that agreement that in addition, Israel will cease fire for something like 3 months. 3 months, it's forever in war terms. 3 months in order to execute this deal of gradual release of the hostages. And yes, also including, according to some sources, I'm not sure it's totally true, but anyway, I believe that Israel will accept such term that the Hamas leadership will leave to exile. The problem with this NIA is that, we have a deal with the most fierce, cruel jihadist, people that jihadist in any term, so you would say rationally, anyone who is in such an inferior position, like the Hamas leaders, underground, their tunnel are being searched and occupied one by one. You would say, okay, eventually Israel will get to any one of you, even when you're underground. And I can tell you, we have a lot of success underground. However, we're talking about jihadists, and therefore you don't know if they will actually behave as any normal person would behave in such circumstances. Namely, to say, okay, I lost this one, I killed too many Israelis, I slaughtered, and therefore I will go out to exile and I will try to reconstruct myself and my organization from the outside of the country. However, with them, this is absolutely not necessarily the only result or answer we may have, and unfortunately they might behave as jihadists, namely to do a suicidal thing, and this is exactly why we are worried about it. All this war, and that's of course correspond with what the Major General said before. This whole war could be end swiftly if we wouldn't have hostages. Everybody knows that. We could act much more fiercely. We could act much more fast. But the hostages are the game changer here, unfortunately, and we need to take it into account.
Okay, Major General Ashwini Savaj, let me ask you this question. Do you believe that there is any possibility that Hamas could accept a deal such as this, where Israel says that, we're going to declare a ceasefire for 3 months and let, the top leaders of Hamas exit Gaza?
Why at the first time or first instance, why Israel has given this sort of proposal? The point which Israel is thinking that, in a built-up area, I fully agree with my friend from Israel. No doubt they are fighting in a very difficult situation, because to tackle the tunnel defenses, this has not been done by any defense forces of the world. It is a big challenge to fight in a built-up area. But what Israelis are finding difficult is that they are not able to make out who is an enemy and who is a civilian. And they are feeling it that they have unable to target the top leadership of Hamas in Gaza Strip. And therefore they feel that if they give this proposal, and in case the Hamas agree to it, And these leaders, which are Yahya Sinwar and others, if they come out from Gaza Strip, then it will be much easier for Israel than to basically take on Hamas in Gaza. But I don't think Hamas is going to agree, because the question is that Israel is feeling very comfortable once they are out of Gaza, then they will able to target them the way they have basically Salah al-Urari, who are number 2, who has been killed in Beirut. So they think that they may able to target them one by one, let them go out of Gaza, so that the Hamas are without leadership, we will able to basically then neutralize, because as on today, they are finding it very, very difficult to achieve success. Any army of the world would not have able to achieve any success, because tunnel defenses are difficult to crack. And I suppose you may or may not agree that there is a basically, as far as the Hamas is concerned, there is a local sympathy of the Palestine people, and there are number of overground workers and sleeper cells which are working, and therefore Israel, it is becoming very, very difficult to achieve success.
It is a very, very difficult war. Absolutely. Israel can go on talking about achieving complete victory over Hamas. Well, it is not going to be easy. Of course, Israel is known to track down targets abroad. Maybe it's hoping it can do that with Hamas leaders. But as the Major General said, highly unlikely that Hamas would accept a proposal such as this. And at the moment, unfortunately, it seems like this war is going to continue, at least for the foreseeable future. This as people continue to die on both sides. On that note, Dr. Harel Chore, Major General Ashwini Savash Levaran, thank you so much for joining me on Global Lens tonight. Let's now shift our focus to the US elections, where the contest is hotting up. Well, the state of New Hampshire in the United States will vote in the Republican primary today, with the contest now confined between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. The former US president is aiming to drive his last remaining rival out of the 2024 White House race with a resounding New Hampshire victory that would cement his control over the GOP. Ahead of the vote, Trump told his supporters, every day the Republican Party is becoming more and more unified. We started off with 13 opponents and now we are down to 2 people, and I think one person will be gone probably tomorrow. Nikki Haley's campaign is the last obstacle, barring unforeseen circumstances, to the general election clash that polls show most Americans don't want. A rematch of the 2020 showdown between Trump and President Joe Biden. Now, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley is pushing back hard against Trump's bid to end the GOP primary race after only 2 nominating contests. Ahead of the pivotal day that could decide whether she can claim the rationale and the money to stay in the race, Haley warned that America does not do coronations and that Trump's efforts to bounce her out of the contest are antithetical to Republican values. She said, and I quote, "America doesn't do coronations. We believe in choices. We believe in democracy." The outcome of the first in the nation primary will have huge implications for the choice that Americans get in November's general election. New Hampshire represents Haley's best opening to claim an early victory against Trump that would show what is beginning to look like his inevitable match to the nomination, which would then complete his transformation of the Republican Party in his image. The contest is also critical to the former South Carolina governor being able to realistically prolong her campaign through her home state next month and beyond, and for her capacity to convince big money donors to stick with her. On the Democratic side, Biden's name is not on the ballot today, and no delegates will be awarded because of a dispute between the state and the Democratic National Committee over its reordering of the party's electoral calendar. But there is an unofficial test of the president's popularity with an organized effort for voters to write in his name. Voters are casting ballots following Trump's romp to victory in the Iowa caucuses last week with more than 50% of the vote. The contest is now, as we said, a head-to-head between the former president and his former ambassador to the United Nations after the withdrawal of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Sunday. Haley has been seeking to exploit Trump's gaffe in confusing her with former Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, as she argues that neither her 77-year-old GOP rival nor the 81-year-old President Biden, have the mental sharpness to serve second terms.
We had a very good competitor, Ron, as you know, Ron DeSantis, and he fought hard and he fought well, and now we have one left. We started off with, really, if you add some Democrats into it, we started off with 13, and now we're down to 2 people. And I think one person will be gone probably tomorrow, and the other one will be gone in November. We've got a lot of Democrats voting for her. You have a crazy election. Let's all get out and let's vote for somebody that we want to run against. They want to run against because she's so easy to beat. If you look at the polls, Biden beats her by a lot. We cannot have that. We're beating Biden by so much, probably get indicted 3 or 4 more times by tomorrow. They're going to indict. They're going to keep indicting, and it keeps driving my numbers up. I can't figure that one out.
But now we've got to talk about some hard truths. For Republicans, Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That is nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. But the only way we're going to do that is if we elect a new generational conservative leader. You look at any of these general election polls, any of them. Trump and Biden, it's a dead heat. It's going to be a nail-biter of an election. We don't know what's going to happen. But we're scared of that it'll be 2018, 2020, 2022 all over again. I'm in every one of those same general election polls. And I defeat Biden by up to 17 points. But let's look at what your options are. As you go to vote tomorrow, this really is an option. Do you want more of the same? Or do you want to go forward? 70% of Americans have said they don't want a Trump-Biden rematch. The majority of Americans disapprove of both Biden and Trump.
Our next story on Global Lens tonight is from Canada, and this is something that could impact Indian students. Indians planning to study in Canada and those pursuing courses there stand to be the worst impacted as the Justin Trudeau administration brings in new norms for overseas students in its bid to tackle rising food costs and a housing crisis. India is the largest source country for overseas students in Canada, according to the High Commission in Ottawa. Currently, about 2.3 lakh Indian students are enrolled in various courses in that country. The Canadian government's move to cap the number of overseas students and a rise in cost of living may now make Indian students weigh Canada against other options such as the UK, the United States and Australia. Canada has capped the number of student visas to be issued at 360,000. That's a 35% cut compared to last year. Canada's Immigration Minister Mark Miller says this is a temporary policy for 2 years. The new proposals also set limits on issue of postgraduate work permits to overseas students. This is aimed at encouraging them to return to their countries. Earlier, these permits were seen as an easy way to get permanent residency in Canada. Now, those pursuing master's or postdoctorate programs will be eligible for a 3-year work permit. Those admitted under a curriculum licensing agreement will no longer be eligible for postgraduate work permits Open work permits will now be available only to spouses of overseas students pursuing master's or doctoral programs. The spouses of undergraduate and college students will no longer be eligible. Student permit applications now require a new document, a letter of attestation from a Canadian province confirming its capacity to accommodate the applicant. Canada is amongst the favourite destinations for Indian students aspiring to study abroad. According to last year's data from the Ministry of External Affairs, over 2 lakh students headed to Canada, the US and the UAE. Australia and the UK were preferred destinations too, attracting about 90,000 and 50,000 students respectively. Between 2013 and 2022, the number of Indian students moving to Canada to study has seen a massive rise of 260%. Over 1 lakh Indian students moved to Canada in 2021 and 2022, according to the data that is available. In fact, about 40% of overseas students in Canada are from India. But could these students now be, in fact, in the process of reassessing their options? All right, we live in a digital age which seems to be fraught with multiple risks. Here's a story that should alarm all of us. Security researchers have revealed that a massive database containing no less than 26 billion leaked records has been discovered on an unsecured page. Dubbed the mother of all breaches, it is likely that the biggest found till date, as per a report in Forbes magazine. The database contains sensitive information from several sites including Twitter, Dropbox and LinkedIn. This breach was discovered by researchers from Security Discovery and Cyber News, and the research team believes that the database was compiled by a malicious actor or data broker. They say that threat actors could leverage the aggregated data for a wide range of attacks, including identity theft, sophisticated phishing schemes, targeted cyber attacks, and unauthorized access to personal and sensitive accounts. The leaked data also has records of users from Chinese messaging giant 10% and social media platform Weibo. Records from Adobe, Canva and Telegram have also been found. Worryingly, the researchers say records from an assortment of US and other government organizations can be found. The only good news is that only a minor part of the database is new. The researchers say it is more a case of compiled records from thousands of previous breaches and data leaks. But regardless, it is of course a matter of grave concern. All right, now this is an interesting story from Australia that will set you thinking. Just in case you're planning to call in sick to work because let's say you're feeling too lazy to go to work or have other plans, think again. An Australian woman experienced the ultimate fear of every employed individual as she took a flight after reporting in sick to work only to discover her supervisor on the same plane. Leela Soares posted a TikTok video capturing her predicament on spotting her manager during her flight. The video gained immense online popularity, accumulating over 11 million views on TikTok. In this video, she has disclosed that she had called in sick to work, fabricating a health-related excuse for the day off. Later, she found that her boss was on the same flight as her later that day. The TikTok video vividly captures the moment she realizes that she might actually get into trouble. The comment section is quite interesting. Leela there clarifies that her boss wouldn't have noticed her because he boarded the flight from the front section while she sat towards the end. However, she did not provide any update on whether she was spotted by the manager or not, and her comment sections are full of very interesting reactions. One user wrote, "It happened to me. I called in sick and went for shopping. At the checkout, there she is right behind me saying, 'What are you buying?' I froze." Another user said, "I called in sick one time and went to the casino and saw my boss waving at me by the roulette machines." Well, whatever excuses you may be thinking of making to bunk work, you certainly don't want to see yourself in that situation. All right, as we wrap up Global Lens tonight, let's get you a lowdown on the big Oscar nominations that have been announced today. The nominations for the Oscars 2024 have been announced. As expected, the Christopher Nolan film Oppenheimer has had a strong showing at the Academy Award nominations. Apart from Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Barbie and Poor Things have also been nominated in various categories at the Oscars. Cillian Murphy has received a nomination in the Best Actor category for his titular portrayal in the movie Oppenheimer. Bradley Cooper too has been nominated in the same category for his role in the movie Maestro. For her role in the same movie, Carey Mulligan has been nominated in the Best Actress category. Emma Stone too finds herself in the list of nominees for the movie Poor Things. The Oscars will be held on the 10th of March. That's all the time we have on Global Lens tonight. If you have been, thanks for watching. Do join us again tomorrow.
Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this?
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, that US markets has slowed down because of high inflation.
So obviously, diamonds being a dream product, something which doesn't have a utility value or is seen as a luxury. So that obviously goes off your shopping list. That's the first item that will go off your shopping list, especially in recessionary trends.
That lab-grown diamonds are not mined and they do away with the entire mining. So they save up on all the environmental damage that is associated with mining and of course, the mining cost, which is why they're even more affordable.
People that is impacted by all these recessions are the artisans, are the people who work in this industry, right? But I think lab-grown diamond has allowed them to actually use their skills in the same product.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
A defiant performance by Dan Hag's men. Now standing at 7 feet 4 inches, Satnam Singh is making his way into professional wrestling.
We are getting more good news for India.
Welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Here are the top 9 headlines today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in Parakram Divas celebrations at Red Fort to mark the birth anniversary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He also launched Bharat Parv, a 9-day event to showcase the country's rich diversity and exhibit different cultures. Sharing a video on the landmark opening of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said it will be etched in our memories for years to come. In the 3-minute video, the Prime Minister can be seen walking into the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. The doors to the Ram Temple in Ayodhya opened to the general public for the first time, a day after the Pran Pratishthan ceremony. Thousands of devotees have been gathering near the main gateway along the path leading to the temple since the 22nd of January. Union External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has highlighted the negative side of globalization while criticizing the established world order. He said it concentrated economic power in a few regions, making the rest of the world dependent on them. Mr. Jaishankar is in Nigeria for the 6th India-Nigeria Joint Commission meeting. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has said India not being a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council is absurd. The American entrepreneur said countries with excessive power don't want to give it up, adding that Africa collectively should have a permanent membership in the United Nations. Closer home, tension gripped Guwahati as about 5,000 Congress workers tried to enter the city for the Bharat Jodo Nyaya Yatra. A huge contingent of state police is on the spot to prevent the Congress workers from hitting Guwahati's roads. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi has accused Assam CM Himanta Biswa Sarma of trying to obstruct his yatra. In West Asia, 24 Israeli soldiers were killed in Gaza, the biggest death toll in a single day since the war began in October. Israel has proposed a multi-phase deal to Hamas, including a 2-month pause in fighting and the release of all hostages. The proposal comes a day after Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected a deal by Hamas fighters to end the war in Gaza. The Justin Trudeau government has slashed international student admissions for 2024 by 35%. Canada's response to the crippling housing crisis has had the anticipated fallout, but the cap on international student numbers won't affect current study permit holders or renewals. Ahead of the general elections on the 8th of February, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz chief Nawaz Sharif has said it won't be easy to bring Pakistan back on track given its geopolitical compulsions. Sharif vowed to resolve the nation's economic mess once elected. Prime Minister Modi has caught the opposition off guard. The Pran Pratishthan of the Ram Temple was announced late last year, but few seem to have grasped the significance of the event. It was believed to be a religious function, which it was, but few could have judged the national event of the kind that the 22nd of January became, with lakhs of people participating. The opposition boycotted the event but had misread the national opinion. With general elections just 2 months away, will Prime Minister Modi's temple trump card trump the opposition? Joining me to discuss this are Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist, and Amitabh Tiwari, political commentator and political strategist and commentator, and author and senior journalist Sunita Aran, and my colleague Kartikeya Sharma in the studio. Welcome to the News 9 Plus show. Kartikeya, I want to start by asking you, ab ki baar 400 par, has the BJP checkmated the opposition with the Ram Temple Pran Pratishthan yesterday?
I think the response of the opposition was poor. See, Ram Temple as an emotive issue, I don't think Bharatiya Janata Party is going to make it like the central plank. It is going to be one of the planks. The poverty, Labharti politics, the global positioning of India will be part and parcel of it. So I don't think it will be a single campaign issue like national security of 2019 or governance issue against corruption of 2014. There are a lot of things which Prime Minister is going to talk about in this coming election. But yes, I think the main opposition party, especially, they failed to understand that there is a displaced sense of, or to put it more bluntly, the idea of Nehruvian secular order has been displaced.
Right.
You know, you have a new imagination of the country.
Yes.
And I think that displacement, they thought that they might end up with some sort of sectional vote banks. Now, I don't know how much will it work, because the vote bank of Bharatiya Janata Party is between 38 to 51% in many places. So even if all of them come together, they'll find them very difficult to beat BJP in North India. Only problem area for BJP are places like Telangana, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Andhra Pradesh. That is the problem area. But but temple there is a word in Hindi called Hava. Hava bhi bandi hai aur sama bhi bana diya hai.
हवा भी बांधी और समा भी बना दिया है. Amitabh, I want to ask you, what did the Congress and the opposition actually think they would gain by staying away from the temple ceremony, and do you think it's kind of backfired, their calculation?
I'm not sure what is the thing that they had in mind that they would gain by not attending this inauguration. By just attending, at least they would have contained the damage. But that's not happened, and we've seen how emotionally charged the entire atmosphere is in the country. And voting is an emotional decision. It's not a rational decision.
Absolutely.
The Congress or the opposition has also been trying to put this north-south divide. Now, Prime Minister Modi went to 4 or 5 temples in the south of India, and he carried his journey from the ocean. He said the Ram Setu to the Saryu River. So he, in a way, actually established the fact that the Ram is as similar or has a similar role in everyone's hearts, even in the south of India, because Hanuman was born in present-day Karnataka. Ram spent 5 years of his exile in Karnataka. So what the opposition perhaps wanted to paint is as a Modi event, which anyways it was. I mean, even if they would have attended or not attended, the Prime Minister Modi would have hogged the limelight. But what it sends a message to, let's say, highly religious people, or let's say Ram Bhats, who are neutral and who were not largely voting for the BJP, because there are some people like that as well, it rubs them the wrong way. Because as Kartikeya said that, and I reiterate in many discussions, that BJP's vote base of 37% today comprises largely 2/3 of its ideological core base. And 1/3 of it is the cherry on the top, which is the Modi factor, which is due to this development, nationalism, investment friendly image, etc., etc. Now the opposition needs to wean away someone of them, either of them, correct? Either the hardcore ideological voter or the neutrally aligned voter, which is voting for the BJP due to his charisma and many other factors, as we discussed. So by not going, they have alienated the hardcore voter, who may have been disillusioned, or a section of them may have been disillusioned due to poverty, unemployment, agri-districts, etc. But it also does not, this not going also does not work with the neutrally aligned voters. And a lot of people have been saying that it's not going to impact much because whoever was voting for BJP will vote for the BJP, and whoever was voting for Congress anyways would vote for the Congress. Then by this theory, the election is gone. Because BJP would be getting 7% and Congress would stay at 20%. Correct? So, I mean, this is a bizarre logic which strategies of the Congress party perhaps have conveyed to the leadership, and I see losses here, and containment of damage is very difficult now, because the BJP in the next 2 months is going to maintain this momentum. If you've heard, there is a campaign for helping people who want to see the Ram Mandir across booths, across states. So they would like to maintain this momentum and also play on other factors like development, Bharti status, and the TINA factor as well.
That's an important point that you mentioned there, Amitabh. The fact that, it's become the building up on that momentum which began last year. I think few of us could have seen the impact of that Pran Pratishthan, but like you mentioned, it's become a movement of sorts, and it's going to continue for the next couple of months. Sunita, I want to ask you, how badly did the opposition misjudge this thing of staying away from the event, and how is it going to, recoil on them if that actually happens, as Amitabh was suggesting?
The demolition of the shrine, I think a lot of people had started saying that temple is no more a political card that any party can encash, especially BJP. But they did not realize that they'll have someone like Modi and the BJP under Modi will be able to build it into a big campaign.
Right.
As till the 1992 they had a campaign, and now they again had it. So definitely not only opposition but many others who used to say, I was always of the view that Ram temple will always remain an issue.
Right.
Today, tomorrow, and even I say even in future, because this is something which connects the hearts, and people are very emotional about it.
Yes.
But there were a strong section of people who thought that Ram temple cannot deliver votes to BJP anymore.
Right.
But they could never foresee that Narendra Modi ji and his team and the RSS and BJP will able to convert it into a mega event. Regarding opposition, perhaps they wanted to toe an ideological line. I've said it again and again that they misjudged it. If Mrs. Gandhi didn't want to go or Rahul didn't want to go, they should have sent some representative.
Right.
They wouldn't have gained. Not a single vote,
Right.
But they wouldn't have also given a handle to the VHP, RSS cadre who are now painting them as anti-Hindu.
Absolutely.
So perhaps, as Amitabh said, some damage control.
Yes. Gautam, I want to ask you this point that Sunita raised, the fact that it's actually going to be a handle that the BJP and RSS will now use against the Congress. Look, this is the party that stayed away from the Pran Pratishtha and they boycotted it. What are your views on this? How is the party going to contain that damage if it wants to, hit three figures?
I think the party has given up on trying to address the whole nation.
Right.
It is basically addressing what it thinks is its vote bank, but perhaps the Congress realizes also that the vote bank is not exclusive. I mean the minority vote bank is not exclusive to the Congress, but goes across quite a few of the opposition parties.
Right.
Now, with the India Alliance in a quandary on practically everything, from the leadership to the vote sharing, to the seat sharing, it's going to be Mamata Banerjee on its own, it's going to be Nitish on his own. So they've got problems in multiples beyond the stupidity of trying not to appeal to the largest section of India, which are the Hindus. Now, what might have begun as a, if you like, a BJP manifesto come raison d'etre. Remember, they were at 2 seats before 1990.
40 years ago, exactly. Yes.
And they went all the way to a coalition government in 6 years. And then they went to a full majority 10 years after the interim Congress government.
Yeah.
So the Ram temple is sort of woven into the rise of the BJP.
Yes. Gautam, I'm going to interrupt you. Kartikeya has a point to make.
It was a catch-22 situation. It was like tails have been, heads you lose.
Yes,
imagine it like a political game, Sandeep.
Right.
Since you have written the word temple trump card, so the trump card will win in any circumstances. So first, what should have opposition done? A lot of people have said that they should have come, shown grace. They have made an historic.
They wouldn't lose anything
They would
by
have
being there.
Scenario one, the